Marvel's heroes didn't all begin with Spider-Man, Iron Man, or the Avengers. Decades earlier, during the Timely Comics era, the very first costumed heroes were taking shape. Strange, experimental, and sometimes forgotten. A flaming android who terrified readers, an underwater prince who ruled with rage, and a masked vigilante who predated Batman's entire persona. These weren't just characters, they were the blueprint for everything Marvel would become. So who were the first heroes ever created by Marvel? And which of them survived history's test? Here are the first 10 superheroes born in the Timely Comics era. At number 10 is Monaco, Prince of Magic, who appeared in Daring Mystery Comics #1 in January 1940. He was one of Marvel's very first magician heroes, standing apart from costumed crime fighters and science-born androids. Dressed in a tuxedo and turban, Monaco was introduced as a stage performer whose powers went far beyond tricks of the hand. He could hurl fire, command illusions, and use real sorcery to defeat criminals and foreign agents who threatened the innocent. His adventures captured a time when readers longed for escape, and the line between stage magic and the supernatural felt thrillingly thin. But despite his promise, Monaco's story was short. After only 2 appearances, he vanished, left behind as Marvel shifted focus to other heroes. For decades, he was forgotten, until a revival in the 2008 brought him back alongside other Golden Age heroes, cementing his place in Marvel's mystical legacy. Monaco's flame burned briefly, yet he proved that wonder itself could be heroic. At number 9 is the Fiery Mask, who appeared in Daring Mystery Comics #1 in January 1940. He was created by Joe Simon, the same visionary who would soon co-create Captain America. His alter ego was Dr. Jack Castle, a physician whose life changed forever when he was kidnapped by a sinister scientist commanding an army of zombies. During the struggle, Castle was bitten by a strange being, and that encounter gave him the power to summon fire from his own body. With a blazing costume and a mask that glowed with heat, he chose to turn tragedy into purpose, fighting criminals, cults, and grotesque threats with living flames. Unlike the Human Torch, whose powers were born of science, the Fiery Mask stood at the crossroads of horror and heroism. His legend burned briefly, vanishing after only a few appearances. Yet decades later, Marvel revived him in the 2008, revealing he had been kept in suspended animation since World War II, proof that even forgotten flames can be reignited. At number 8 is the Ferret, who appeared in Marvel Mystery Comics #4 in February 1940. Created by Steve Dallman, his alter ego was Leslie Lenrow, a private investigator who worked in the shadows of the city. He was different from the fiery androids and aquatic princes that shared Timely's pages. He had no powers, no kingdom, and no science experiment gone wrong. His only gifts were sharp instincts, relentless courage, and the small animal that gave him his name. With his loyal pet ferret, Lenrow tracked kidnappers, unmasked gangsters, and followed trails no one else could see. But the Golden Age was moving quickly, and readers were already falling in love with heroes who blazed across the skies or ruled from beneath the seas. By the end of 1940, the ferret was gone, his brief run already fading into memory. Decades later, he returned only as a curiosity in Marvel's handbooks and retrospectives. A forgotten detective remembered more as trivia than legend. His story is proof that even in Marvel's first days, some heroes never escape the shadows. At number 7 is Electro, the Marvel of the Age, who made his first appearance in Marvel Mystery Comics #4 in February 1940. He was created by Steve Dallman and stood as Marvel's very first true robot superhero. Unlike the Human Torch, who was alive and conscious, Electro was a gleaming golden machine, built and remotely controlled by Professor Philo Zog. Readers watched in awe as this silent giant ripped through steel doors, hurled electricity into mobs, and turned Nazi saboteurs into fleeing cowards. But what made Electro so striking also became his weakness. He was a vessel without thought, a weapon without a soul, his heroism existing only through the mind of his creator. His adventures ended by 1942, as audiences favored heroes with voices, hearts, and inner struggles. Electro would later resurface in nostalgic stories, still empty and wordless, a reminder that Marvel's earliest experiments with machines carried both promise and tragedy. And the next heroes weren't experiments anymore, they became Marvel's foundation. You'll be amazed to discover how they reached that position. At number 6 is the American Ace, who appeared in Marvel Mystery Comics number 2 in December 1939. Created by Paul Gustafson, he was one of Marvel's earliest heroes, shaped not by science or sorcery, but by the shadow of war. His alter ego, Perry Webb, was an American pilot flying over Europe at the dawn of the Second World War, a man who carried no superhuman gift, only skill, courage, and his plane. His stories placed readers in the cockpit, soaring into skies filled with dogfights, enemy squadrons, and danger at every turn. He battled air pirates and saboteurs, his adventures echoing the world's anxieties as conflicts spread across nations. Yet his time was short. After only a few appearances, the American Ace faded from Marvel's pages. Unlike other pioneers, he never returned in a revival or reinvention, except one occasion. His name was not passed on, his mantle not reused. He became Marvel's first forgotten patriot, a hero of flight who vanished into history except for nostalgia projects. At number 5 is Khazar, who first appeared in Marvel Comics number 1 in October 1939. Created by Ben Thompson, his story was adapted from earlier pulp adventures. His real name was David Rand, a child who survived a plane crash in Africa that claimed the lives of his parents. Raised in the wild with the companionship of his loyal lion Zar, Rand grew into Khazar, a jungle lord whose courage and strength echoed legends like Tarzan. Through the early 1940s, he appeared in Marvel Mystery Comics and even carried his own short-lived title, battling hunters, wild beasts, and threats to his adopted home. But as superheroes rose in popularity, the age of pulp adventurers began to fade. By early 1942, Khazar's adventures ended with Marvel Mystery Comics number 27, closing out his Golden Age run. In 1965, Marvel introduced Kevin Plunder as the new Khazar in X-Men number 10, and he became the version remembered by fans. David Rand, Marvel's first jungle hero, was left behind, a pioneer eclipsed by a successor. At number 4 is the Masked Raider, who appeared in Marvel Comics number 1 in October 1939. Created by Al Anders, he was Marvel's very first cowboy vigilante, standing apart from the flames of the Human Torch and the fury of Namor. His alter ego was Jim Gardley, a ranch hand betrayed by corruption and left for dead. Rising again with a black mask across his face and his horse Lightning by his side, he swore to bring justice to the lawless frontier. The Masked Raider's adventures were filled with shootouts, bandits, and the harsh code of the West, echoing the traditions of Zorro and the Lone Ranger. He appeared in Marvel Comics number 1, 1939, and continued through Marvel Mystery Comics number 2 through 12, before vanishing in late 1940. In 2019, Marvel revived the Masked Raider name with the mystical Eternity Mask, though Jim Gardley himself remained long gone. Yet Jim Gardley himself remains Marvel's first forgotten cowboy, a pioneer overshadowed by the rise of capes and powers. We're down to the final 3, and from here on, these heroes didn't just appear, they built Marvel's universe. At number 3 is the Angel, who appeared in Marvel Comics number 1 in October 1939. Created by Paul Gustafson, he was one of the earliest costume detectives in comics and one of the most published of Timely's first heroes. His real name was Thomas Halloway, a wealthy man who trained himself to fight crime without powers, relying on intellect, determination, and skill. Wearing a simple blue suit and red cape with a golden emblem, he confronted gangsters, murderers, and madmen across dozens of adventures. From 1939 through 1946, he appeared in every issue of Marvel Mystery Comics up to number 79, outlasting even the Submariner in that series. But when the Golden Age ended, so did his story. His regular adventures ended in 1946, but decades later, Marvel revived him in the 12 and the Marvels project, restoring him as part of the Golden Age legacy. Although the Angel name was famously reused for the X-Men's Warren Worthington III, Thomas Halloway himself remains recognized in continuity, no longer forgotten. At number 2 is Namor the Submariner, who first appeared in Marvel Comics number 1 in October 1939. He was created by Bill Everett and introduced as the Prince of Atlantis, a figure who did not come to the surface as a savior, but as a conqueror. Namor declared war on humanity for polluting his oceans, making him the first great anti-hero of Marvel's history. With pointed ears, wings on his ankles that allowed him to fly, and strength powerful enough to lift tanks, he was a hero unlike any other of his time. Though he debuted alongside the Human Torch in Marvel Comics #1, 1939, Namor quickly stood out as one of Timely's most popular characters. He also fought alongside Captain America during the war, a fierce ally who was never truly loyal to anyone but his people. Decades later, he returned in the Silver Age in Fantastic Four #4, 1962, proving that Marvel's earliest anti-hero was destined to endure. At #1 is the Human Torch, often hailed as Marvel's very first superhero, who appeared in Marvel Comics #1 in October 1939. Created by Carl Burgos, he was an android built by Professor Phineas T. Horton, designed to be a marvel of science but cursed with a flaw. When exposed to air, his body erupted in living flame, a sight that terrified the public. At first imprisoned in a glass chamber, he eventually broke free, determined to use his powers for justice rather than destruction. Through the 1940s, he became one of Timely's most important heroes, battling criminals, spies, and Axis forces, often alongside his young partner Toro. He stood proudly beside Namor and Captain America as one of Marvel's original icons. Though he vanished after the war, he later returned in Fantastic Four Annual #4 in 1966, his flame reigniting for a new era. The Human Torch began Marvel's heroic age, a creation of fire who refused to be extinguished. If you love uncovering the hidden history of comics, hit subscribe. We've got more secrets coming.